Hello, everyone. It's Paul Kagabine at the Garland County Library. And first of all, happy Earth Day. We have quite a few things going on in our program tonight. The main presentation is going to be brought to you as part of the Garland County Master Gardeners Know It to Grow It program. And the guest speaker tonight is Leslie Cooper, who's the Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Coordinator, who has recorded a video about monarch butterflies and conservation. And we also have quite a few prizes to give away to anyone watching live. So we'll be talking about those here in a minute. But first of all, I have an extra special guest this evening to start us off with, and that is Christine Kimbrough here, who is the Urban and Community Forestry Coordinator with the Arkansas Department of Agriculture Forestry Division. That is a very long title.
It is.
She's going to tell you about the tree giveaway that's happening on our library's campus tomorrow, as well as some other things that the Forestry Division has going on. So I'll hop back in a few minutes, but for now, welcome, Christine.
Hi, Paul. Thank you, everybody, for having me. And I'm in the Nashville, Arkansas City Park tonight. My daughter had a district track meet, so yay for being able to work remotely and present with trees behind me. I have a PowerPoint presentation that I want to share with you that tells you a little bit more about our program, and then I can tell you some more about the tree giveaway, as Paul said, that's happening at the library tomorrow. So, Paul, if you'll just let me know when that is up and ready to go.
It's ready.
All right. So the picture on this beginning slide, these are two young men from the 4th grade East Lab in Springdale, Arkansas, and they are planting some trees that we donated to them on their campus. And so getting trees planted across the state in areas where we don't have enough tree cover is one of the main goals of the Urban and Community Forestry program. This slide has a little video where I tell you more about the mission of our program.
Having trouble hearing that one. Christine, are you there? Christine, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're having trouble hearing your video on the slide.
Okay. Do you want me to pause it?
Sure, please. Yeah,
there we go. I've got the volume all the way up on it. No, that's fine. It just the mission of our program is to increase the canopy cover and increase the resilience of Arkansas communities by promoting sound urban forest management practices. And I was standing in Fayetteville for that one. One of the neat things about urban and community forestry is people feel at peace when they're in nature, and it just relaxes you. There's been research that has proven that having just even limited bursts of exposure to nature through a window, or even on a computer screen, can increase people's sense of well-being. And so we want to help to get more canopy cover across the state as much as possible. And our tree giveaways are one of the ways to do that and help homeowners. So this is a brief synopsis of the programs that we offer through the Urban and Community Forestry program. Our Shade Trees on Playgrounds is where we select between 10 and 15 schools a year to get up to 5 large shade trees to plant on their playgrounds. Arkansas Community Trees, if you've ever called us up and said, hey, our courthouse square had a tree fall down in the last storm, can you help us out? These are trees that are typically 2 to 3 years old, smaller potted trees between 3 and 5 feet tall that we have available that we pot up and grow every year from seedlings to have stock to donate across the state when we have needs like that arise. Our Urban and Community Forestry Assistance Grants, we promote those once a year. Here we have an application process, and that will be coming up in May, and we usually have the window open for 4 to 6 weeks to apply for those. And one of our main recipients every year is the Arkansas Urban Forestry Council, and so we help support them with that and with advice on their programming. We also have, as one of our main programs, the Arbor Day Foundation's Tree City USA, Tree Line USA, Tree Campus Higher Education, and coming next year, hopefully, they've been trying for 2 years now, but COVID has put a damper on it, the new program Tree Campus K-12 for elementary and secondary schools. Free Tree Fridays is a new program that we've started this year that we hope to continue. Every Friday in April, we have offered seedling giveaways at different locations across the state. And that's what tomorrow's giveaway at Garland County Library is part of. And it was a really neat thing because the giveaway March 5th at your library is actually what sparked the idea for that whole program. We gave away all the trees we brought to the library on a rainy day within an hour. And so we had one of our county rangers in another county and said, hey, I want to do this in my county. And I got to thinking, we haven't been able to do giveaways due to COVID. And so that one was a drive-through event. And we said, let's do drive-through giveaways every Friday and call it Free Tree Fridays. So the birth of a new program. The selfie tree contest, and I've got a slide on that I'll tell you more about that in a moment. We offer residential tree technical assistance, community tree technical assistance, and then we assist with community tree inventories. So the Free Tree Friday schedule has grown. We started with about 10 and we're up to 18 now, and we have 2 Fridays left for this. I've got an arrow pointing to yours at the Garland County Library. It will be tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you can't make that one, there are also several being held on National Arbor Day, which is next Friday, April 30th. You can find this schedule on our website. When you go to the Forestry page, then click a link for Urban and Community Forestry, and there's a link right at the top for the Free Tree Friday schedule. So the selections we'll have available tomorrow. Thank you, Judy, for sparking me to put this slide in here. Cherry bark, chinkapin, overcup oaks, and bald cypress and nuttall oak are all going to be bare root seedlings. And we have clear plastic bags that will package those in. And we'll also hand out a how to plant your bare root seedling guide with each one of those. And then your county forester, Regine Skelton, has some white oak and water oak seedlings that she has grown out for 2 years in a mounded bed. And they have dug those up, and she'll have, I think, between 60 and 100 of those to give away as well. The hashtag selfie tree contest. This contest has only had one winner so far. And so I encourage you, there's 2 weeks left in the contest. Go to Facebook, post a selfie of yourself with your favorite tree or with a tree that you like or would like to replace. Tag Arkansas Forestry Division and Arkansas Urban Forestry Council. Share, ask for likes, and we pick a winner each week who has the most likes, and they will get a free tree. We're going to be delivering a free tree on May 4th to the 3rd grade class at OARK Elementary in OARK. And I like to end most of my presentations with advice from a tree. Stand tall and proud, go out on a limb, remember your roots, drink plenty of water, be content with your natural beauty, and enjoy the view. There's my contact information if you need me, and I will leave that with Paul and with Judy in case you have any questions, or if there's anything we can do for you, please reach out and let us know how we can be of assistance.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Christine. Once again, absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. All right. Happy Earth Day.
You too. So once again, that tree giveaway at the library is tomorrow, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. First come, first serve, but tons of tree varieties and tons of trees. So thank you to the Forestry Department for taking that initiative. All right, so next up, I want to introduce the Garland County Master Gardeners Chairperson, Judy Dare. How are you?
Hello.
So we would like to, before we begin the main presentation tonight, we have a few more things to talk about, including prizes. So Judy, you start.
Okay, so it's a big day. We've got a lot of different things going on, but happy Earth Day, everyone, and welcome to the Know It to Grow It Earth Day special. Just a little history about Earth Day. I think this is very interesting. It was started 51 years ago by Senator Gaylord Nelson. He was really worried about the environmental problems at the time. Can you believe it back then? And he announced at a conference he was in that there was going to be a grassroots nationwide demonstration to highlight the problems in our environment. And from that one announcement, it went viral in a time that things just didn't go viral. And 20 million demonstrators and thousands of others, students and others, participated in the first Earth Day. So I think it's really incredible what one man can do, and that he can start a movement. So maybe we'll all start a little movement of our own. So tonight's program is going to be a little bit different because we're pre-recorded. So Leslie is going to do 2 segments, and we won't have our regular question and answer period, but she's going to have a recorded question and answer period of the frequently asked questions. So that was a really cool idea. The way we're going to do our door prizes are a little bit different tonight, and we'll get to that in just a second. Just a couple of quick reminders. The Garland County Master Gardener Plant Sale is this Saturday from 9 to 5 at the Garland County Fairgrounds. And we have a lot of plants. Oh my goodness, plants galore, and many that you can't find commercially. So please remember that it's 9 to 5 on Saturday at the fairgrounds. Please wear a mask and come ready to buy some great plants. Also, we have the Spring Fling cleanup this weekend from the Solid Waste Department. And you can call them for more details, but there's 9 different locations all around Garland County and Hot Springs. And you can take things like old couches and junk that you've been wondering what to do with. This weekend is the weekend to get rid of it. Let's see. Okay, I'm going a little bit fast because there's so much going on. The way we're going to do the door prizes tonight is to take a poll. And Paul is going to show on the screen a list of topics that we think you might like to hear about. So what we'd like you to do is pick a topic, type it in the chat box, or if you have a topic that you've come up with your own, type that in the chat box, and we'd love to hear that too. At the end of the program, what we're going to do is kind of a random drawing, and it'll be live at the end of the presentation, so that should be really fun. We've got some great gifts tonight. We've got our regular gift bags, but we've kind of spruced them up a little bit for Earth Day. They have a reusable water bottle, a reusable grocery sack, and we've got some really neat seed paper. There we go. We've got some really neat seed paper shaped like butterflies, and they are wildflowers. So please just, put your topic in the chat box and you'll be entered into the drawing. The prizes, like I said, are fun. The second one after our gift bags is a very cool bracelet from 4Ocean. The purchase of one bracelet from 4Ocean funds a pound of plastics out of our oceans, pound of trash. And I'd like to thank my sister for thinking about this and donating this prize. Our next prize is a really interesting prize. It's a way to reuse or repurpose things. My friend Anne, a master gardener, creates some unique solar lights made from vintage glass and has donated one for us. It's ready to mount and shine in your garden. So please register for that, and then go see Anne and other crafters Saturday at the Farmers Market from 9 to 2 after you go to the Garland County Gardeners Plant Sale at the fairgrounds. And then the grand prize is from our wonderful sponsors at the library. It's a membership for one and a guest to Garvin Woodland Gardens for a year. So just please log in and go for the prizes. They're really fun this month. Our next program is on Thursday, May the 20th with Jody Took, and she is going to talk about mosses. The title is Mosses, Mystery in a Modern World. I know everybody's like, oh, well, mosses. Mosses are fascinating, and I really think you'll enjoy this program, so please join us. Now on to our speaker. There's almost too much to say about this young woman. Her name is Leslie Cooper, and as Paul said, she is the Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Services Coordinator. It is in partnership with the National Resources Conservation Services and Quail Forever. She's really, really passionate about her work and is a very learned woman. Some highlights from her bio are: she's a graduate from the University of Idaho with a degree in fire ecology and management and a second in ecology and conservation biology. She's been a wildlife firefighter and has worked with the Hot Springs National Park in a geothermal water study. And there's a whole lot more. Leslie is based out of Little Rock, where she lives with her husband, Adam, who tolerates her smuggling as many plants in the house as she can get. She's an Idaho native and an outdoor enthusiast. She really enjoys exploring the natural states and learning about the natural species that we have here, our native things, our bugs and our wildlife, our flora and fauna. She is happiest when she has a drip torch in her hand. What can you say about a woman like that? Here is Leslie Cooper.
Not Leslie Cooper. It's going to take me just a second. I'll get that
video.
Sorry. But
here's Paul.
Yes. And we have several comments coming in giving those program suggestions. So the video that we're about to show by Leslie, there's going to be about 45 to 50 minutes there. But if you're not able to watch the entire time, we will tag you if you were one of the winners. But we're also going to announce them live here at the end after the videos we're going to show here in just a moment. Let's see here.
There's a lot of moving parts with this. I have to give Paul a lot of credit for putting it all together.
Well, there's an extra step when it's not a YouTube video. Those are really easy, but let's see. All right.
See y'all later.
Hi, my name's Leslie Cooper. I'm the Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Coordinator. Thank you so much, Judy, for that wonderful introduction. I'm very sorry that I'm not able to present live for you today, but today we're going to be talking about planting for pollinators. So how to create high quality habitat for monarch butterflies and pollinators in your own backyards. Today, just a brief overview of what I'll be covering is the monarch biology, just a brief overview, some things in Arkansas that we're doing, what you can do for pollinators in your own yards and on your property, and some resources to help you do so. So the monarch butterfly is one of the most iconic insects in North America. And there are 3 distinct populations of monarchs in the US. There's a small non-migratory population in southern Florida, a western population that is west of the Rocky Mountains, and this population overwinters along the coast in California. And the largest migratory population is east of the Rockies, and these are the butterflies that we see here in Arkansas. Arkansas is in the migratory pathway of the monarch in the spring and fall, and we're also in the spring and fall breeding grounds. The eastern population overwinters in central Mexico, and actually recent studies in Arizona have found that monarchs in the southeast can actually migrate to overwinter in either California or Mexico. Their migration is one of the largest animal migrations in the world, and it stretches over 3,000 miles from the southern parts of Canada to their overwintering grounds in central Mexico. So, monarch biology, monarchs undergo complete metamorphosis, which means that it passes through distinct egg, larval, pupal, and adult stages. So the life cycle really begins with a female laying a single egg on the underside of a leaf of a milkweed plant. After being laid, it takes 3 to 5 days for the eggs to hatch. Shortly before hatching, the tip of the egg turns black, and this is the head capsule for the caterpillar pigmenting. And after hatching, the first instar caterpillar usually turns and eats its shell that you can see in the right-hand corner there. Monarch caterpillars have 5 instars, and an instar is the phase between molting. After eating leaf material, excuse me, the first instar caterpillar will molt and become a second instar so that it can grow larger. In the photo on the right, there's a freshly molted second instar caterpillar. After molting, the caterpillar usually eats the discarded skin. The larval stage for monarchs is typically 2 weeks, and during this time, they consume a lot of milkweed. This would be the equivalent of a human baby growing to the size of an elephant in about 2 weeks. So when a monarch caterpillar is ready to form a chrysalis, it crawls away from the plant it was eating and it finds a sheltered area. It then spins a silk button with the spinneret that's located beneath its mandibles or jaws. And once the button is spun, it turns back around and hangs upside down from its abdomen for 12 to 18 hours. And when it's ready, the monarch larva molts one last time, the skin splitting at the back of the head and neck area. And once it starts, it really only takes about 30 seconds for molt to finish. And the shiny green and yellow pupa below is still soft. And within 30 minutes, the pupa will reshape itself into what most people recognize as the monarch chrysalis. And the casing will completely harden within the next 24 hours. The monarch will remain in the chrysalis phase for 10 to 14 days after pupation, depending on environmental conditions. After 2 weeks, the pigmentation of the adult butterfly begins to show through the transparent casing of the pupa, and the pigment is the last thing to form before the monarch is ready to eclose or emerge from the pupa casing. So it's a myth that butterflies and moths turn into soup inside of the pupa. If you look carefully, even a newly formed chrysalis will show wing veins beneath the skin. It takes between 30 seconds for a monarch to open the casing and make its way out. At first, the wings look small and deformed, but the monarch will soon pump fluid from its abdomen into its wings to make them expand to their full size. And the adult will hang upside down for about 4 to 5 hours after it emerges to let its wings dry and harden into their shape. The adult is still very fragile for the first 24 to 48 hours after eclosion, but soon they can fly, as soon as their wings harden. And the process from egg to adult can take as little as 28 days if the conditions are right. And this process is pretty quick, so monarchs have 4 to 5 generations a year, and it's these generations that are responsible for the migration, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So as we discussed, the monarch life cycle, and I've mentioned their migration, but this second graph helps visualize the annual cycle of the breeding generations and the overwintering generation. And this graph is slightly outdated, but I still like to use it. New research has actually shown that it's far more common for a 5th generation to also be in the cycle, whereas we used to think it was only 4 generations that made the migration possible. So from November through March, monarchs that migrated through the south, through the whole breeding range, spend the winter in Oymal fir forests in central Mexico. And the high elevation fir forests actually provide a microclimate that's needed for monarchs to survive the winter. And in early spring, these monarchs begin the trek north, reaching the southern US where they lay eggs on available milkweed plants. And then the offspring of the overwintering generation continue their journey north. And 3 to 4 additional breeding generations are seen during the season in the northern parts of the range. The time range on the map represents the time that the migration front moves through the region. So beginning in mid-August, monarchs from throughout the northern breeding range can begin the southernward migration to Mexico, and they reach the overwintering sites in early November. Milkweed is an important part of the monarch life cycle. Monarch caterpillars, they only feed on milkweed, and there are more than 100 species of milkweeds in the US. Females only deposit eggs on the leaves of milkweed plants, and the toxic milky sap of the milkweed plant gives monarchs their bad taste, which helps deter predators. And there's actually 21 species of native milkweed in Arkansas, and it's a common misconception that monarch caterpillars only eat plants in the Asclepias genera, but there are several genera of milkweeds that we have here in Arkansas that are milk vines and have been known to be used by monarchs. Here are pictures of monarchs on 4 different species that are native to Arkansas. So from left to right, there's tall green milkweed, which is Asclepias hortella, swamp milkweed, which is Asclepias incarnata, whorled milkweed, which is Asclepias verticillata, and green antelope horn milkweed, which is Asclepias viridis. Adults also need nectar plants, so high-quality monarch habitat has a high diversity of native nectar sources in addition to milkweeds for caterpillars. The overwintering generation of monarchs are born into a state of reproductive diapause. And this actually means that they're reproductively dormant and they're solely focused on migrating to the overwintering grounds in Mexico. So the generations that are spanning across the US, the average butterfly really only lives 2 to 6 weeks, which is relatively short. But these overwintering monarchs, they can actually live up to 9 months. And those are the generation of butterflies that allows them to continue this migration. So monarchs' overwintering grounds are in Michoacan, Mexico, in the Oymel fir forest. And in the center photo, you'll see lots of orange on the trees. And this isn't foliage, but hundreds of thousands of butterflies that are covering the branches and trunks of the trees in clusters. The branches literally sag under the weight of all of these butterflies, and it's truly phenomenal. This is where the monarch colonies are measured in hectares, and scientists use an estimate of about 10 to 50 million individuals per hectare. But new remote sensing technology is helping scientists get better population estimates. So over the past 2 decades, monarch butterfly populations have declined significantly due to a variety of factors, including habitat loss and a lack of milkweed plants, which again is the sole host plant used by monarchs during its egg and larval stages. This population graph that is produced by Monarch Watch annually shows the general decline of the monarch population that overwinters in Mexico over time. This graph shows the total area covered by overwintering monarchs in hectares in the month of December, and a hectare is about 2.5 acres. So think of 2.5 football fields, including the end zones, all touching. Following an overwintering population that covered less than 1 hectare in 2014, there was a presidential memorandum that was issued from the White House that directed federal actions to address the issue of pollinator conservation that resulted in the creation of a pollinator health task force. And in the same year, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was petitioned to list the monarch as a threatened species under the Endangered Species Act. Well, in December of 2020, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced that listing decision as the monarch was warranted but precluded by higher priority listing actions, and the monarch is now a candidate under the Endangered Species Act, and its status will be reviewed annually until a listing decision is made. So at the highest peak on this graph, experts estimated that 18 hectares was the equivalent of 1 billion monarchs that covered the area. So although there had been an increase in recent years, I'd like to highlight that the 10-year average is still only 2.6 hectares, and experts have determined that we really need to sustain an average overwintering population of 6.6 hectares to sustain the annual monarch migration. So what's happening? I mentioned habitat loss before, and this is due to untimely mowing, during the migration and development. The overuse of pesticides, specifically the insecticides, neonicotinoids and herbicides. There is some illegal logging still occurring in the overwintering grounds in Mexico. There's also untimely weather events that can wipe out large percentages of the population. So the unseasonable snowstorm that you see on the right, thankfully most of the monarchs had already left Mexico, but I believe that they called this the St. Patty's Day storm. And when they're clustered so tightly together in the overwintering grounds, they're very susceptible to these huge devastating losses just by untimely weather events. Monarchs are also susceptible to natural enemies. So, as insects, they lay many eggs during their lifetime, and only about 10% of monarch eggs make it to adulthood. So what is Arkansas doing? The Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership, which I'm the coordinator for, was formed in 2015, kind of following that big dip. And it's a collaboration of state and federal agencies, municipalities, municipalities, non-governmental organizations, businesses, academia, and private individuals working together to conserve and protect monarch butterflies, pollinators, and their habitats. So since forming in 2015, we now have over 30 proud partners that are active in the steering committee and the habitat outreach and education and research and monitoring subcommittees. So following the 2015 summit, the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership Steering Committee worked together to finalize a statewide comprehensive plan to conserve and protect monarch butterflies, pollinators, and their habitats in Arkansas. Summit participants had agreed that the statewide strategy for monarch conservation should focus on expanding and creating habitat that's necessary to support monarch breeding and successful migration throughout the state. But moreover, participants agreed that while the monarch is the primary concern, the plight of all pollinator species needed to be included as a part of the strategy and overall message. Specific goals were included in the plan that focused on the needs of our native bee species. The plan has 5 main categories. The first is habitat conservation, enhancement, and restoration. The second is research and monitoring. Another is outreach and education, capacity, governance, and funding, collaborations and partnerships. And if you're interested in reading more, the plan can be found on our website at arkansasmonarchs.org. So how can you help? Well, the best thing that you can do to benefit monarchs is to create or improve habitat for monarchs and participate in community science opportunities. So Dr. Doug Talmy, in his latest book, Nature's Best Hope, said that if half of American lawns were replaced with native plants, we would create the equivalent of a 20 million acre national park. That's 9 times bigger than Yellowstone or 100 times bigger than Shenandoah National Park. We encourage native habitats of all sizes because every little bit truly helps. And the most important thing that you can do to help with monarch and pollinator conservation is to create native habitat to support these populations. So you can create native habitat by reducing or eliminating pesticide use, specifically insecticides. Insecticides are non-discriminatory, so you'll be killing the good bugs as well as the undesirable insects that you think you don't want in your garden. You can also plant native milkweed species. As I mentioned before, there's 21 native milkweed species. In my own garden, I have 6, so it's almost like collecting them. And you really need to include a variety of native plants. So we have milkweed as host plants, and then the blooming plants as nectar sources. And when you're trying to do this and get started, a general rule of thumb is to aim for about 3 species that bloom in the spring, 3 that bloom in the summer, and then 3 that bloom in the fall. So at least 9 different species. But really, you want to maximize bloom diversity, and you want to pay particular attention to early blooming species and late blooming species because monarchs are migrating mainly in the spring and the fall here in Arkansas. And also be mindful when mowing and to follow guidelines that can minimize impacts on pollinators. There's several best management guides available, but if you can either not mow until monarchs are no longer in the state, or to mow at different times, then you can minimize your impact on pollinators. And as some of you may have seen, the partnership has a recommended native plant list, and that's kind of on the right side, and it helps people get started with planting natives. We've recently produced a native plant care and maintenance guide that's meant to complement the plant list, and this new 12-page document is made to simplify. It's a simplified guide to maintain these species in a formal garden setting. And there's also a list of resources in this document. And you can email me for these resources, or you can check out our website. And it's currently undergoing maintenance, but it should be launched by the first Friday of May. The Outreach and Education Subcommittee members also contributed to this newly released Native Gardening for Arkansas Pollinators brochure that can be used as a quick reference for those that are interested in creating monarch and pollinator habitat. The brochure is currently available for free download on the AGFC website, and a link will also be posted on our website as soon as it's finalized. And the printed brochure will also be available at Arkansas Game and Fish nature centers across the state. Another resource that I'd like to point out is the Grow Native website. That's a product from the Missouri Prairie Foundation. It's great. It has a lot of different resources. I highly encourage you to check it out. It's grownative.org. And one thing that I'd really like to highlight is it has free landscape plans available for download. And although these plants, are specifically native to Missouri, I would say about 95% of them are also native to Arkansas. So there's a few other resources where you can check and see if the plant is native to your area. Again, if you want to email me, I'd be happy to send you those. The Lady Bird Johnson website or the USDA plants database are great places to start. But if there is a native plant that they use in their design, with my experience, it's fairly easy to find a closely related substitute, usually from the same genus. So one thing that I did want to mention is that all of the plans that they have there will benefit pollinators regardless of the name. They have a butterfly berm, that's the design on the left, but they also have, a hummingbird haven and whatnot. So as long as you're planting native, you're going to be benefiting these pollinators. And as long as you're including native milkweed species, you're also benefiting monarchs as well. Another way that you can help is to certify your garden. Monarch waste stations is an option. Audubon, Arkansas has a bird-friendly yard program that's a tiered approach for creating bird-friendly yards. And although, we're talking about monarchs pollinators and they're certifying bird-friendly yards, they're focusing on native plants. So they're not only benefiting birds, but also the pollinators that we're trying to protect as well. National Wildlife Federation also has a certified wildlife habitat program. And a new one is Wild Ones, which is kind of a native plant gardening and advocacy group. They have their own certification program, and it's their native plant butterfly gardens. So if you're interested in kind of creating public gardens, there is funding available. One of the options is the Greening of Arkansas grant. It's awarded to nonprofits and civic groups, typically aimed for beautification projects. You can find more information on their website. And the Arkansas Native Plant Society also has a small grant program. It does have to be in a public space, and the amount of funding can vary, but they also have deadline information on their website. There's also additional resources available specifically for schoolyard gardens or for local conservation districts. And if you're interested in any of those programs, I'd be happy to share that info with you. One thing that I'd like to highlight when you are trying to help pollinators at home, if you go into any of the big box stores, please be wary of any pollinator or butterfly seed mixes. And they have beautiful pictures on the front, but it's really important to read the label so that you can see what species are actually in the mix, the species that you will be planting. Because even though it says wildflowers, that really doesn't mean that they're wild or native. So it's very, very important to be smart about what you buy. And remember, go native, grow native. And I've kind of alluded to this earlier in the presentation, but planting native plants to benefit the monarch butterfly also benefits other pollinators, birds, and beneficial insects. So I mentioned beneficial insects. The Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation defines the term beneficial insect specifically as insect predators and parasitoids, and it also describes other non-insect predators like spiders that suppress crop pests specifically. And beneficial insects are also commonly referred to as biological control agents. And having these predators is really a sign of a healthy ecosystem. And they have a free guidebook available for download from their website that discusses this topic more in depth, and it's called Habitat Planning for Beneficial Insects. One thing that I'd like to mention is that Xerces also specifically recommends not purchasing commercially available egg cases for praying mantises. Chinese praying mantises are generalist predators, and they're not native, and they readily consume beneficial invertebrates, like our native bee species and other things like frogs, lizards, and even hummingbirds. These are fairly large insects, and they do eat hummingbirds, which is really unfortunate. But we do have native mantid species in Arkansas, and they're much smaller than Chinese praying mantises. So if you ever see a baby mantis, chances are it's not a Chinese praying mantis. It's actually one of our native praying mantises. It's the Carolina praying mantis. There are other opportunities for you to get involved and help kind of indirectly support monarch and pollinator conservation. One option is participating in native seed collections. They take place across the state. The Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission, or ANHC, the Arkansas Native Plant Society, Audubon Arkansas, Project Wingspan, and other partners that are involved with the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership hold these collection events throughout the year. And the seed collected at these events are locally adapted for Arkansas ecoregions, and it's often referred to as eco-type seed. One important thing that I'd also like to mention is that it's illegal to dig up native plants on public lands, and we don't encourage people to dig up plants at all. Native plants don't typically survive transplanting after they're established, so they'll be removed from the landscape permanently. So if you're interested in, having a plant in your garden or anything like that, there are native plant sales that pop up across the state. Most of the species are also commercially available, so you can establish from seed. So please don't dig them up. So one example of a success story is the Little Rock Garden Club. They affectionately call the project the Covey Project because they're working with Quail Forever, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, Central Arkansas Water, and Audubon Arkansas to collect ecotype seed, and they're using it to reestablish land that Central Arkansas Water owns, and it's meant to be a demonstration area for quail habitat and also monarchs and pollinators, because really the two aren't exclusive. We're also encouraging everyone to join the Arkansas Monarch Mapping Project on iNaturalist. For those that aren't familiar with iNaturalist, it's a free app that you can download and create an account. You can access it, on your smartphone or on the computer. So you can use the app to log observations and also identify plants and animals. As of this week, 201 people have contributed 1,135 monarch observations to the project. This information is very important since it helps us better understand monarchs that are migrating through Arkansas and can be used to better inform our own management decisions. Another thing that I'd like to point out is that Dr. Doug Talmy, whom I quoted earlier, has 2 books that are out. If you're interested in learning more about the importance of native plants and how it can benefit wildlife, I recommend Bringing Nature Home and also Nature's Best Hope, which was released in February of last year. Also, Quail Forever has a Farm Bill Biologist program. It's jointly funded between NRCS and Arkansas Game and Fish Commission. And these biologists are across the state, and what they do is they help landowners utilize cost share programs that are available to help them establish high quality habitat for monarchs, pollinators, deer, turkey, quail, and they provide free technical assistance. So this is available to private landowners at no cost and they write free management plans. So regardless of whether or not you decide to enroll in any of these cost share programs, you can definitely get a free management plan. And if you are a landowner who's interested in learning more about federal and state cost share programs that you may qualify for, or if you're interested in receiving free technical assistance or that management plan that I mentioned, please contact your local NRCS field office or Quail Forever Farm Bill biologist to learn more about what you can do on your property. You can also email me at lcooper@quailforever.org, and I can connect you with your local resources. And with that, again, I'm sorry, I'd love to answer questions live, but if you type them into the chat box, I can answer them later, or you can send me an email again at lcooper@quailforever.org. Thank you.
All right. Well, as you can see, Leslie was very passionate about monarch butterflies and conservation. And in fact, she was so disappointed she wasn't able to answer questions live. She wanted to do a follow-up video that we recorded yesterday, and she provided me with a list of her most frequently asked questions. So that's about a 15-minute video that I'm about to show. And while I'm getting that ready, Judy, will you tell them about the prizes that we're going to show as soon as that video is over again, or giveaway announced?
Okay, so the first 3 people's name that are going to be drawn will get the enhanced gift bags. The next will get the lovely 4 Oceans bracelet. Then we'll go to the solar light, and then we're going to go to our grand prize, which is the Garland Gardens membership. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Leslie talking about what we need to do in native plants, and really our mission as our Master Gardeners group this year is to make small meadows that create this huge garden meadow network. And like you said, just one small place can create many, many places for our pollinators and our butterflies and things like that to go. So please try to plant some native plants. And by the way, we're going to be selling some of those at the Garland County Master Garden Plant Sale this Saturday. And let's see, what else? What a better way to create a better world than to feed the birds, feed the bees, maybe pick up some trash, create your own little, environmental movement, and just help the world. I think we all, if we band together, we can make it a better place, and for future generations, it'll be great.
Well said. All right, so if you haven't commented yet, you have about 15 more minutes while I show this Q&A.
Oh, come
video.
on, everybody. You've got a topic you want to hear about. Tell us about it. We'll do it.
You can go off of that list that's already in the comments or come up with your own, as long as it's somewhat in the scope of what the Master Gardeners do. They'd love to hear it. All right, so see everyone in about 15 minutes, and we'll announce the winners. Okay, well, Leslie, good to see you again. This is the following day. We recorded a separate video with some frequently asked questions. So I'm going to read some of those off. These are questions that you submitted to me that you get a lot when you do this presentation. So let's start. Where can I get native plants?
So this is one question that we get asked a lot. It really depends on if you're looking for plugs, so very small baby plants, or if you're looking for seed. So there are different native distributors. Specifically in Arkansas, there's one native plant nursery that's long established. It's in London, Arkansas, so it may not be appropriate for people that are from different parts of the state, but her name is Marianne King, and the nursery is called Pine Ridge Gardens. There's also a lot of native plant sales that pop up across the state. So actually, Garland County Master Gardeners is having a native plant sale that will be this Saturday. And I'm sure that Judy Dare can provide some more information on that. And they will be selling several native milkweed species and some other native plants. But I also recommend that you go online and follow the Arkansas Native Plant Society's Facebook page, as well as Audubon, Arkansas. If you're close to Little Rock, Audubon, Arkansas has a native plant sale in the spring and fall, and they've been doing COVID friendly pickups. I'm not sure if their spring sale is over yet, but you could definitely check back and see. But those are specifically for the plugs. As for seed, we really don't have any native, like Arkansas native seed distributors currently located in the state. But there are several native plant seed companies that are in the surrounding states. So Roundstone Native Seed has several Arkansas native species that are local ecotype, so they were collected locally. And there's several native plant distributors, native seed distributors in Missouri. So Hamilton Native Outpost and Missouri Wildflower Nursery are some that I know sell packets of seed. But there's a lot of information out there, so you can check the Missouri Prairie Foundation's Grow Native website, which is grownative.org, for some other seed vendors.
And what are the best native plants to plant for pollinators and monarchs?
So the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership does have a list. The best thing that you can do for monarchs and pollinators is just to plant native plants. Again, when we talk about monarchs and our native bees, the more diversity, the better. And specifically for monarchs, it's really, really important to focus on those early blooming plants and those late fall blooming plants so that we can fuel the migration and that they have kind of food sources as they travel across the state.
What's the life expectancy of a monarch?
So an adult monarch, from egg to adulthood, it takes about a month. But an adult monarch that does not overwinter, they live about 2 to 6 weeks. And the overwintering monarchs they can actually live up to 9 months. And that's because they're in that state of reproductive diapause. So their sole focus is migrating instead of mating. And then, if you're interested in planting more native plants, on our website, arkansasmonarchs.org, we actually have a recommended native plant list, and we can try and post that in the description with a link as well.
What if your milkweed isn't very big when your caterpillars emerge?
So this is a question that I got, yesterday when I was ironically doing another presentation for a master gardener group. A lot of the people said that they do have native milkweed, but it's very small right now, and they've noticed they either have eggs or caterpillars, and they're very concerned about it not being enough milkweed. So there's a couple things that you can do. It's plant more milkweed in your garden so that there's more of a food source. But another thing that you can do, and also keep in mind, is that, monarchs lay hundreds of eggs, female monarchs lay hundreds of eggs over the course of their lifetime. So that's what insects do, is they lay a lot of eggs, just so it's kind of a numbers game, so that, some make it to adulthood. So typically, a monarch will only lay a single egg on a plant. But if you are getting multiple eggs and multiple caterpillars, sometimes these caterpillars are, parasitized, or they're just not fit. So it's really just best to kind of let nature take its course and let them, eat as much milkweed as they can and just leave them be. I definitely don't recommend, going out to a wild patch of milkweed and cutting it down, because then you're removing that resource from the landscape. So it's really best to just let things happen as they may.
How do you know if a plant is native?
So this is another question that I get asked a lot. There's a lot of confusion on native plants. So, something that's native to, say, Missouri or Kentucky may not be native to Arkansas. So there's a lot of online resources that are available that can help you determine if a plant is actually native to Arkansas. Sometimes people see flowers commonly, so they think that they're wildflowers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're native. Queen Anne's lace, for example, is not native to Arkansas, but it's everywhere. So one website that I like to point people to that's very user-friendly is the Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Plant Finder. It's at wildflower.org, or if you just Google Ladybird Johnson Plant Finder or native plants, you should pop up the website and you can search for native plants. It has plant profiles. It tells you what states it's native to. And then there's another website that I personally use because it gives county level data based on where a plant is native to. So I use an app called BONAP. It's BONAP, and it's an acronym. But if people are interested, I can include that link in the description as well. It's just a little bit more difficult to use, but all you have to do is type the genus and species into the yellow box in the species column, and then there's a county level map that pops up that shows where the species is native to.
Can you go over those books that you mentioned in the presentation again, and were there any others that you recommend?
Yes, so I have some examples. So I do highly recommend Dr. Doug Talmey's work. This is his first book. It's called Bringing Nature Home. He has a book, again, that came out in February of last year that's called Nature's Best Hope. And, you know, if you had to pick one, I would recommend picking the latest one. So Nature's Best Hope, just because it has some of the updated research findings that weren't included in his first book, but both are definitely worth your time. If you're interested in learning more about native plants, this book by John Kurz is highly recommended. It's Arkansas Wildflowers. It's arranged by color and bloom. So it's a really great resource if you're just getting started and you can learn where to find these native plants. Another great author that I really recommend is Heather Holm. And her book, Pollinators of Native Plants, is really excellent because it goes over different species. Most of them that are included in this book are native to Arkansas, but it talks about, you know, kind of the different pollinators that use these native plants. And it also covers their distribution and bloom time, and it shows different native bee species, which is kind of cool. So she also has a brand new book she came out with that's wasps. So our native wasps are also really important pollinators, and they're highly diverse. She also has this book called Bees, an identification and native plant forage guide. And hopefully the library has some copies of the more common books. But this is a really cool reference. And if you're really looking to getting into you know, some of the native pollinators and learning more about our native bee species, this one is it's a pretty hefty text, even though the title doesn't really say so, but it's called The Bees in Your Backyard, and it's by Joseph Wilson and Olivia Messinger Carroll. And it's very extensive, and it kind of gives for all of the different bee species. It's a lot of really great pictures. It's very informative. My husband, who's not a biologist, he saw the book and he was just entranced from page one. It's just a really cool book to kind of flip through and learn more about the diversity of our native bees and pollinators.
All right, thank you very much, and we'll try and get as many of those books as we can at the library. So next question was, if you have eggs on your milkweed that haven't hatched, when can you expect them to hatch?
So this is another question that I get asked a lot. You know, it's very exciting when you have a monarch visitor and you have eggs on your milkweed plants. Eggs typically hatch after 3 to 5 days, depending on environmental conditions. I know with the cold weather that, you know, we've been experiencing, people are a little concerned. But for the most part, it should just delay development. You know, this isn't scientifically backed, but it's just anecdotal. I had one person in Little Rock last year that had an egg hatch after 10 days, but I've never seen any literature that said that this is common. You can also tell if an egg is dead. They're very teeny tiny, so if you have a hand lens, or if you can take a decent enough picture to zoom in, you can kind of tell if an egg is dead. You'll see it being kind of gray and blotchy around it, instead of just having that single like black dot at the tip of the egg. And make sure that, so milkweeds are known for their milky latex sap. And the only species in Arkansas that doesn't produce this is Asclepias tuberosa, which is butterfly milkweed. It's the bright orange milkweed that we see on the side of the roads. It's very hairy, but it's the only one that doesn't produce this sap when you break a leaf. But the other milkweeds do. So if you're trying to determine if it's a monarch egg or a sap like bubble, the sap bubble will be round and kind of indistinct, and it'll be kind of white. Monarch eggs are kind of a cream colored, and they come to kind of a point at the tip. And then where it's attached to the base of the leaf, they have perpendicular lines that run, to the tip where, it will turn black right before the little monarch hatches.
How many different species should someone have if they're planting a garden?
So the bare minimum that we recommend is 9. So that's 3 species that bloom in each of the seasons, during the growing period. So that's 3 species in spring, 3 in summer, and 3 in fall. And that's the absolute bare minimum. I really recommend that you maximize diversity. If you are planting a garden, it is good to have, 1 or 2, several plants clustered together, because if you're thinking of how, bees and butterflies kind of see their food, it's best to have them kind of clumped together. And it's also more aesthetically pleasing if you're planting like a formal garden. If you go to that Grow Native website and look at the landscape plans that I mentioned, they do have several plugs clumped together, just from an aesthetic standpoint. And also it's helpful for the pollinators to find it. So if you can, with whatever you have, start with the 9, start with 3 in each season. And again, they're harder to find, but the early spring blooming plants and the late fall blooming plants are really, really important to help fuel that migration. And the early blooming species are particularly important for our native bee species. And it's really best, since native bees are so diverse, we really want to aim for having a diversity of flower sizes, shapes, structures, colors. And the more diversity that you have, the basic rule of thumb is the more insect diversity you'll have in your garden, which is definitely what we want. And just remember that if you see things eating your plants, that's a good thing. That means that your garden is a part of the environment, and you want to see those insects munching on it. Those insects and plants are, adapted to each other. They've co-evolved, and they're used to that type of disturbance. A lot of people are really concerned when monarch caterpillars eat milkweed down to the stem or even to the ground, and they worry that they've killed the plant. Well, milkweed specifically really likes that type of disturbance, and it almost seems to thrive from it.
For a pollinator meadow planting, do you have to go and reseed it every year?
So, I've talked a lot about formal gardens, in the presentation and in my previous answers. But a lot of people, especially for large scale habitats, greater than anything you would want to tend as a garden, but typically more than, half an acre or even less than that. We kind of call them, pollinator plantings. They're native habitat restorations or pollinator meadows. And the thing that people don't realize is that although seed is a little bit expensive, for an acre, seed should cost about $300 per acre. So if you're paying much more than that, the mix probably isn't the most ideal. And if you're a landowner and you have questions about that, please feel free to email me. But the interesting thing is that you don't actually have to reseed it every year. native plants have very extensive root structures, so it takes a long time for them to, quote unquote, show up. So the basal leaves are there, the plants are there. You just can't see them necessarily unless you're really good at identifying basal rosettes of plants. But sometimes these native species take several years to bloom. So we try to let people know that even though you're not seeding it every year, you just do about a year of site prep. You seed it in the dormant season. So you seed in December, January, because a lot of these native species their seeds need to go through a cold, moist stratification period in order to germinate. And so the first year, you're not going to see a whole lot of color, maybe some annuals that were included in the mix, maybe some weedy species that just kind of volunteer for the planting. The second year will look a bit better, but it's really the third year that you start seeing the diversity of your seed mix and those plants. And that's just because it does take a while for some of those plants to mature and bloom.
Okay. Well, it is now time for our drawing. So, Judy, if I can get you to entertain or stall for just a minute or two, I can get that set up.
Okay. I didn't know this portion of the program was coming up, but I'm good to I'm good to do that. I love to talk. Well, we do have some great species of plants at the plant sale, but you can also do so much just with seeding. We are actually going to try to start a meadow project at the detention center where we have a community garden that benefits the Hope Project Food Bank. And so hopefully by next year, I guess in January, Leslie and her crew are going to come out and do a burn the entire field, and then actually use some herbicide, which, we always are told not to do. But they're going to get the ground down to bare roots, and then they're going to plant the pollinator mix. And we joke and say, for the older ones of us, that we're around to see the plants grow. But in 3 years, we hope that the detention center will have a beautiful meadow behind it, and that will really help the quail and all the natural benefits of the bees that grow out there. We just haven't had enough wildflowers to take care of them, although they pollinated the heck out of the Hope Garden, and we had a wonderful crop, and plan to do it again this year. Need some more filler, Paul? Okay. And if anyone wants to be a master gardener, we'd love to have you in the program. Just give me a call. I'm at 501-952-9205, or you can also contact the Garland County Extension Service for more information about how you can be a master gardener. We are in conjunction with the Arkansas Master Naturalist, which together a team is just wonderful. We really work well together, and we try to make sure that we're promoting both good habitat practices and natural habitat practices. So there's a lot of information that you can get from either a master naturalist or a master gardener, and we're always willing to share our comments.
All right, I'm ready. So,
good deal.
How many prizes do we have again, Judy?
We have 6. We have the 3 enhanced gift bags. We have the Great 4 Oceans bracelet. We have the handmade vintage glass solar light, and we have the grand prize, the Garland Garden membership that y'all are giving us, and it's going to be for a year for one person and a guest.
Well, that worked out perfectly because we had 6 unique entrants, so everybody is going to win. We're going to go and order and build up to the Gardens Pass. So the last person to win something is going to win that Gardens Pass. All right, so I'm going to put my screen up here, and on the right side, I have a list of the entrants, and here I have a random number generator. So what is the first prize we're giving away?
Giving away a gift bag.
All right, our gift bag winner is number 6. Jean P. Win a gift bag. Congratulations.
They'll be at the library first thing tomorrow morning, so please come and pick them up whenever you want to.
All right, what's our next prize?
Another gift bag.
Number 3, Urbanica. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay.
All right, what's next?
Another gift bag.
Melissa. All right.
They're fun. All right, now we're going to have the Four Oceans bracelet. Takes a pound of trash out of the ocean for every bracelet purchased. And it's a cool bracelet.
Jamie.
All right, Jamie. Congratulations.
All right, so it's between Sandra and Claire.
Drum roll, please.
Okay, the winner, whoever I pull up next, is going to be who wins the Garland Gardens Pass between Sandra and Claire. So Sandra,
wait, I think it's going to be, okay, I get you.
And then the other person, the runner-up, will get the other bracelet. Okay.
But you're all winners, and we appreciate you being here.
And thank you for all of your suggestions. Oh, well, that was easy. All right, Sandra, you win the Garland Gardens Pass. And Claire, that means you get the other bracelet.
Nope,
So
she gets the solar light, which is really cool.
Sorry. Solar light. There we go. All right, so I'm going to save this list and have it ready when Judy drops off the prizes tomorrow. So here are our winners. And thank you, everyone, for participating. Judy, anything else you'd like to say?
No, thanks for joining in this kind of weird program we've had tonight. It's been pre-recorded. We've had number generators and all kinds of stuff, but it's been fun, and thank you. And please join us again next month for Mosses with Jody Took. Happy Earth Day, everybody, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for watching. Take care.